Yes team, what is happening? So we're just on our way up to the Redon Performance Centre in Crosby to get full profile testing done today, so like lactate threshold, power. So we're going to head up there now. The whole testing will probably take about 90 minutes to 2 hours depending on how much rest I need in between, and then this will be able to help with my programming going forwards. So I'm coached by Redon. They'll be able to put all of the results that we get today into my programming to make sure it's as accurate as possible, to ensure that I'm overloading but not overtraining, and that I can get the best out of my upcoming events like the half marathon and the 50-mile ultra as well. So just going to drive up there now, and then we'll go into it in a little bit more detail as we're doing each one of the tests.
Okay, so that's the idea behind today, so we can make proper data-driven decision-making processes as we move forward with your training programs. Okay, so what does that look like and what tests are done? First one, we lactate threshold test. Okay, it's not that bad until the last 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so you do go till failure. Okay, what we will do is we'll set you off. You start off at 6k an hour. Every 3 minutes we ramp it up by 2k an hour. That's when I'll take a sample of blood, hopefully from the same spot. I'll ask you for an RPE. That goes on a scale of 6 to 20. Don't worry, I'll repeat all this as we go into it. And I'll take a heart rate measurement as well. And I'll plug all that in so it'll be measured live. The database that we use is reserved for other doctors and professors internationally. So what it allows us to do is compare you against everyone else of a similar stature within a similar sport. Okay. Although there's a few Hyrox type people. Hyrox obviously isn't in there yet. Chess is and sumo wrestling is. But I'll just compare you against something very generic. Okay. And then I'll compare you against just normal people. Bear in mind though that normal people, okay, don't go for lactate threshold testing. So although it says you are in the 70th percentile for everyone of your sex and age, that's people of your sex and age who are deemed to be normal everyday athletes who are getting lactate threshold testing done. Alright, so that is not Karen at Tesco. Okay? Everyone happy with that so far? So just when you get these results through, don't be like, oh, like I'm in the 50th percentile or whatever. Yes, that's lactate threshold testing. It allows us to set zones and all the rest of it. Typically in here we have high intensity, low intensity, okay, because zones are very narrow in terms of heart rate thresholds. We can set speeds, we can do off rate perceived exertion, there's a lot we can do with the data. We can predict sometimes as well, and there are predictions in terms of like 5k right away through to full marathon as well. Okay, 9 times out of 10 they align quite well. We do get some certain freaks who come in and for whatever reason the data is skewed. That might be overtraining, nerves or white coat or lab coat syndrome is sometimes called, which will skew your heart rate data. There's a whole host of reasons for it not marrying up. But this is the best that you're going to get in the country, hands down. Okay, that's lactate threshold testing. The other testing that we'll do will be in here. Okay, so we'll use a linear encoder. We'll measure the speed of the bar relative to your weight and relative to the actual weight that's on here. Okay, and then we can deduce then what your ideal and optimal power output is. Okay, and weight in terms of kilos, based off your physiology. So, do you have a high propensity to be more powerful, essentially, which skews your P max or your power max across to the right, so you need to lift more relative to your 1 rep max, so we're not just basing things off a percentage. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll also look at impulse, range. Do you lose range the heavier it goes? Where are you strongest in the squat? Are you strongest in the bottom, top, middle, whatever it may be? And that again will dictate in line with training outcomes and training programs, and we can look at everything from 1 RM right the way through to 10 RM. You'll be building to 1 RM today, but we'll still get all those data. Okay. There will be a mat out as well in a second. We're going to look at counter movement jump. Whilst yes, we can assess power in here and we look at strength and all the rest of it in here, the counter movement jump is put in place and designed to look at your reactive strength. Okay, so your stretch, short, and cycle. Again, it's a standardised protocol. We're not doing any weird and wonderful tests. Some of these have been about since the 80s. The only thing that's changed is the calculations behind them to allow us to come up with your power output and wattage specific to you as an individual.
The first test that I did on the day was the 1RM back squat test. So we started on an empty bar and we just done 1 rep, working up 10 kilo each time.
Big drive
so at this point at 140, I think I've done 12 sets, just working up in 10s basically. We're trying to move the bar over 0.28 meters a second. The second it's beneath that is when it's called on your max for the day. Obviously you'd be able to grind out a rep at a lower speed, but this is what we're looking for in terms of when we're tracking power zones. So I maxed out at 160 on the day, which I'm happy with considering I haven't really squatted this year, and this was all within the testing parameters for on the day. Second test I went into was a VO2 max on the ski. This was quite interesting for me because I've never actually done this before. So it was heart rate monitor on, and then there was a mask on your face that was calibrated to yourself. This can also tell you what fuel source you're using in terms of carbs or fats at a specific heart rate, which is obviously really good for when you're racing to find out what fuel you actually need for the intensity that you're training at. So what Mike's just explaining here is the parameters of the test. So it's 1 minute stood completely still, just to allow the machine to calibrate to yourself. And then it's 1 minute completely easy, classed as a warm-up, which was around 230 per 500 pace. That was just specific to myself. That's just what felt really easy. Then from there you're into a minute max effort, so that's going for your VO2 max. On that I was aiming to keep below 130s per 500. I think it started at around like a 125, 126 pace, and then it jumped up to like a 131 at the end because I had nothing left, to be honest. Then from there you stood completely still for 2 minutes, taking control of your breath and then monitoring how quick your heart rate comes down.
Come on, drive, let's go, come on. Come on, just 10 seconds left, that's it, 10 seconds, let's go. Come on, Ben, come on. Come on, 5. Keep it going, keep going, keep going. Yes. Taking too long. We're still on talking, squeeze all your breathing, mate.
Well, I'll
So do all yourself.
go under it, swing around and then...
Do all yourself talk before you're on that. Remove the mask, please. What have you eaten this morning, man? Porridge. Porridge. Quite anything in it.
Protein powder.
Okay. Just your RER was lower than what? So yeah, it's fine. It's not a drama. Like so, it did flick up to 90. Yeah, so I think it even surpassed 1, didn't it? Towards the end. So RER is a respiratory exchange ratio. So essentially, what this captures in metabolic testing. Probably VO2 max, that goes all about your grade 4. It also looks at substrate utilisation, so are you using more carbs or fats? So when we plug you in, when Mike's going through that calibration, so there's a calibration for that, which is the atmospheric pressure, okay? And then there's a further calibration, you put that on for you, okay? Now when you put it on, it actually down to a minus figure, which means that you've got an over-reliance on fats as a substrate utilisation, okay? For most people it should be about 0.7-ish, which is burning fats at best. So you're burning less energy than you should be in a fat context. So basically,
So next up we were onto our jumps testing. So this is measuring things along the lines of your rate of force development. So hands on hips, this is straight from your lower body and the power that your legs can produce. It measures the force that you're putting down through the mat, and also the time that you're on the air will tell you like the height that you've jumped as well. This can also highlight weaknesses in an athlete's lower body, which could indicate an injury risk, or also for athletes coming back from injury is a great way of targeting how their rehab is going. Then we went into the final test, which was our lactate threshold testing. This measures your LT1, which is your aerobic threshold, and your LT2, which is your anaerobic threshold. So your LT1 is your first noticeable rise in blood lactate. This is where your body starts producing lactate, basically. Usually the bottom of your zone 3 if you're measuring heart rates. and then it goes all the way up to your LT2, which is your anaerobic threshold. That's usually over 4 millimoles per deciliter. That is the point where lactate clearance can no longer keep up with production, so you're boiling over at this point. You can only maintain it for a certain amount of time. The benefits of testing this will give me a better indication on what heart rates and what zones and speeds I should be training at to get the best out of my training and make sure I'm overloading and not overtraining. The test itself, so you get your finger pricked at rest, so that'll take your rest and blood lactate to see what your baseline is. From there you start a gentle jog at 6 kilometers an hour and 1.5% gradient. The gradients will stay the same. This is to allow for the same street running, so the rise and fall in the roads if you were running outside. Then the speed goes up by 2 kilometers an hour every 3 minutes. So I made it about 20 odd seconds into 18 kilometers an hour, which, as you can see, I was nearly falling off towards the end. You've got nothing left, your heart rate spiked, your legs are burning, and it is just not a nice feeling. So as I always say, test, don't guess. I recommend this type of testing to everyone. As you can see, this is the report that gets pulled from it, so you can better highlight weak areas in your training and understand where you need to improve to take it to the next level. If you are looking to go into the Red Zone PC for testing, I will leave a link in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.